As the title credits roll, we emerge from a pour on the sweat-glistened skin of the protagonist, our narrator, Edward Norton, as he looks down the barrel of a gun that's been jammed in his mouth. Tyler, Brad Pitt, holds the gun and checks his watch, counting down to ground zero, before asking if the narrator has anything to say. Before the gun is withdrawn, the narrator mumbles through it and expresses his inability to think of anything. As Tyler gazes out the high-rise window at the dark city below, the narrator recalls how he met Tyler before pausing and returning us to the beginning of the story. The narrator claims that he hasn't slept in 6 months. His employment as a traveling product recall specialist for a car business doesn't help his insomnia because he must travel frequently, enduring bouts of jet lag in addition to the everyday stress of his position, and admiring the tiny life of single-serving soap and shampoo at each location. If he can't sleep, he watches TV or peruses Fernie, a spoof of IKEA catalogs, looking for the next item of decor to add to his flat. He's a self-proclaimed consumerist. He goes to his doctor for aid, but all the doctor will do is recommend a herbal supplement instead of medications, and that the narrator visit a testicular cancer support group to see real pain. The narrator encounters Robert Bob Paulson, Meat Loaf, the Big Mussy, and an ex-bodybuilder and steroid addict who suffers from severe gynecomastia as a result of hormone treatment after his testicles are removed. Bob is ready to encourage the storyteller by hugging him. The narrator ultimately finds calm when trapped between Bob's big breasts and bursts into tears. The emotional release allows him to sleep, and he gets addicted to support groups, planning his week around different meetings and pretending to be sick. The appearance of a woman named Marla Singer, Helena Bonham Carter, however, throws the narrator's system out of kilt. He recognizes her as a tourist, having seen her at many meetings, including one about testicular cancer, and is upset by her lying to the point of being unable to sleep. He confronts her after just one meeting. She claims she is doing exactly what he is doing and jokes that the groups are cheaper than a movie and there's free coffee. Rather than ratting each other out, they agree to divide the week and swap phone numbers. Despite his best attempts, the narrator's insomnia persists. The narrator meets Tyler Durden on a flight back from one of his work travels. Tyler offers a unique viewpoint on the plane's emergency procedure manuals, and they start up a casual chat. Tyler sells soap when he isn't working evenings as a projectionist and sneaking snippets of porn between reels. Before he cabs home, the narrator arrives at the baggage claim to discover that his suitcase has been confiscated, most likely due to an unexplained vibration. Home, a 15-story condominium, was blown into the night by what was thought to be a faulty gas line sparked by a spark from the refrigerator. With nowhere to go, the narrator locates Tyler's business card and contacts him. They meet in a parking lot behind a pub, and Tyler begs the narrator to come live with him, on one condition: the narrator hits Tyler as hard as he can. Though perplexed, the narrator agrees, and they engage in a fistfight before enjoying a few beers. The encounter is exhilarating, and the narrator and Tyler return to Tyler's decaying house, where Tyler is clearly squatting. Tyler and the narrator fight more in the ensuing days, attracting the attention of other tough guys. Tyler forms a formal fight club in the basement of the bar where they had their first battle as their little fighting gang grows. Membership quickly grows, and Tyler and the narrator devise a set of rules, the first two of which are, you do not talk about Fight Club. Members routinely break the rules by recruiting their friends to join them. Tyler repeatedly demonstrates his smart, if unconventional and immoral, outlook on life. The narrator runs across Marla by chance and tells her that he hasn't been to any previous sessions since he's joined a new men-only support group. While he still treats her with slight scorn, it is evident that he is interested in her. When she overdoses on Xanax, she contacts the narrator, who, fed up with her ranting, hangs up the phone. Later, he discovers that Tyler picked up the phone, followed the call to Marla's residence, and took her back to the house, much to the narrator's dismay, where they engaged in vigorous sex. The next morning, Marla finds the narrator in the kitchen, who is surprised to see her in his home. The narrator's surprise offends her, and she flees in disgust. Tyler enters the kitchen after she has left and gleefully tells that he and Marla had sex the night before. He also makes the narrator swear that he will never mention Tyler to Marla. That night, the narrator joins Tyler as he steals human fat from a liposuction clinic's skip. Tyler claims that human fat is the best fat for producing the soap he sells. Back in the kitchen, Tyler demonstrates how to extract tallow from fat. Tyler lands a wet kiss on the back of the narrator's hand after detailing the history of soap making and then dumps pure lye on the spot, producing a horrible chemical burn. Tyler refuses to allow the narrator wash the lye off his hand, claiming that water will aggravate the burn, and informs the narrator that the burn is a rite of passage, having burned his own hand in the same way. Tyler also forces the narrator to accept his loyalty before neutralizing the burn with vinegar. When they later meet with a cosmetics salesperson at a department shop, the narrator observes that Tyler's soap is rather expensive. With the narrator, he threatens to kill a college dropout, June Kim, if he does not pursue his dream of becoming a veterinarian. He lets Lou, Peter Iacangelo, the owner of the tavern where their fight club meets, beat him up before coughing up blood and begging to be kept in the basement. Lou, who is terrified, concurs. Tyler assigns the members of the group a homework assignment. They must all pick a fight with a perfect stranger and lose. The narrator claims that the task is far more difficult than anyone would expect. Bob confronts people in a city plaza, while another member confronts a clergyman. Marla departs after a few days, and Tyler introduces the narrator to his newest pastime. Tyler has turned the basement of the house into a laboratory where he utilizes soap and other substances to produce explosives, thanks to his expert soap-making talents. Tyler and the narrator continue to manage Fight Club, although at a much lower frequency. After receiving criticism at work, the narrator contacts his supervisor, Zach Granier, and negotiates to work from home with extra salary in order to keep his mouth shut. When his boss disagrees and summons security, the narrator severely beats himself up, so that when security arrives, they believe the narrator's boss abused his employee. Tyler finally gives his recruits homework and lectures to them about the dangers of consumerism and relying on society and authority figures. He advocates returning to a time when a man's worth was determined by the sweat on his brow and he only used what he required. This mindset grows into what Tyler refers to as Project Mayhem, and basement brawls turn into mischievous acts of vandalism and destruction. Their acts are not unnoticed, but Tyler is able to convince the lead investigator that the persons he is looking for are those on whom they rely: waiters, bus drivers, sewer engineers, and others. The probe is halted after they threaten the police chief with castration. Tyler and the narrator's rundown house transforms into Mayhem Center, where each new recruit is put through a rigorous period of initiation and training and where the latest schemes are formulated. As Project Mayhem progresses, the narrator becomes increasingly estranged from Tyler, and jealousy creeps in, leading him to beat up and disfigure one recruit, Jared Leto, because he wanted to destroy something beautiful. Tyler drives the narrator and two members away from the Fight Club meeting in a big Lincoln Town car. Tyler taunts the narrator in the rain, implying that he hasn't even begun to live his life to the fullest. Tyler scolds the narrator for being weak and pathetic when he allows the automobile to drift towards oncoming traffic. Tyler then confesses to destroying the narrator's flat. The narrator ultimately caves, Tyler allows the car to drift, and they collide head-on with another vehicle. Tyler exclaims as they emerge from the wreck that the narrator has a new life as a result of his near-death experience. When Tyler is missing for a time, the narrator is left at home with an ever-growing band of Mayhem members who giggle about their publicized acts of damage while watching television. When the narrator inquires about their antics, Bob responds, "The first rule of Project Mayhem is you do not ask questions." Later, Bob is killed in a botched sabotage attempt, and the narrator attempts to disband the gang before things spiral out of control. He searches for Tyler and comes upon a list of phone numbers he has lately used. The narrator follows the list around the country, discovering that fight clubs have cropped up all over the place. At one bar, the bartender addresses the narrator as Sir, prompting the narrator to inquire if he knows him. After being convinced that he is not being tested, the bartender introduces himself to the narrator as Tyler Durden. The narrator returns to his hotel room in disbelief and calls Marla, asking if they've ever had sex. Despite her irritation, Marla acknowledges their relationship and says she knows him as Tyler Durden. Marla hangs up, and Tyler enters the room and confronts the narrator, accusing him of breaking his vow not to speak about Tyler to Marla. A few minutes of dialogue reveals that they are, in fact, the same individual. The narrator suffers from insomnia, he can't sleep, so Tyler's persona takes over whenever he believes he is, or at various times throughout the day. The narrator faints as a result of the epiphany. When he wakes up, he discovers another phone list beside him, this one containing calls from all around the country. When he gets home, it is completely empty, save for one bulletin board, which has a display of files detailing specific buildings in the financial area. He discovers that each one has been infiltrated by members of Project Mayhem, and Tyler intends to destroy them, erasing credit card company data and wiping the slate clean. In a panic, the narrator gathers all of the pertinent facts and reports himself to the local authorities. However, after telling the inspector everything he knows and being left with 2 police, the narrator realizes that the cops are Mayhem members and that he directed them to remove the balls of anyone who interfered with Project Mayhem, including him. The narrator escapes by snatching one of the officers' firearms and fleeing to one of the buildings scheduled for demolition. He discovers an unmarked van laden with nitroglycerin in the parking garage and attempts to deactivate the device. Tyler appears and taunts him, but the narrator disarms the explosives. He and Tyler fight, which appears strangely on the surveillance cameras given that the narrator is only fighting himself. Tyler wins and reactivates the bomb, and the narrator brings himself to another building where they may safely observe the damage. Back in the opening scene, the narrator mumbles again as he tells Tyler, "I still can't think of anything." "Ah, flashback humor," Tyler adds with a smile. Tyler refuses to abandon the endeavor, despite the narrator's pleas. He claims that he is liberating humanity from the oppression of consumerism and superfluous luxury, and that there will be no casualties. The people who work in the buildings are all Mayhem members, fully aware of the plot. Nearing the breaking point, the narrator realizes that Tyler can do anything. He saw Tyler holding the rifle and realizes it is in fact in his grasp. He raises it to his chin and instructs Tyler to pay attention to him. He declares that his eyes are open before inserting the gun into his mouth and pulling the trigger. Tyler is killed, with a gaping wound to the back of his skull after the bullet comes out of the side of his jaw. Members of Project Mayhem arrive with Munchies and Marla in tow while the narrator recovers. Tyler had previously instructed her to be brought to them. When the Mayhem members see Tyler's wounds, they leave Marla alone with him to get some medical supplies. As the initial bomb flames the building in front of them, Tyler stands with Marla and assures her that everything will be alright. Tyler takes Marla's hand in his and tells her, "You met me at a very strange time in my life." The others on the street quickly follow suit. They stand there watching as the explosives detonate and the buildings collapse.